Hello everyone, and today we're going to talk about decoding smaller subdivisions, and in this case we are specifically talking about 30-second notes, which means that you have 3 beams. So 30-second notes are going to have half the value of a 16th note. So if you see two 30-second notes in a pair, you can also know that those will be in the time of one 16th note. If you see 4 30-second notes in a group, as I drew right here, you'll know that that will be in the time of 1/8 note. So right now we're just looking at simple meter, and I've written down some things to help you if you are, for example, in a sight singing exam where you are presented with a rhythm and you need to read it fluently. For my students, I give them a minute to look at the melody or the rhythm that they are supposed to execute before they have to do it. And I hope that they will follow some logical processes, but people sometimes panic and they don't do the most logical process. And I often see people just dive in and try and read it right away. And for many people, that doesn't work very well because they immediately get hung up on things that are scary. But if you take instead time to look at what's in front of you and work out the most difficult parts of it, you may find that you will have an easier time reading it when it actually comes time to read it. So I would say very first thing, make sure that you look at the meter. This seems to confuse people sometimes, so make sure you know what meter you're in. In this case, we're in 3/4, which means there will be 3 quarter notes per measure. So, and then you will see that everything is beamed very nicely in this example according to beat groups. And when you take dictation, I would like to see you beam in beat groups just like this. And hopefully the examples that you read will always be beamed well so that you can see the beat groups, and that will make life much easier. So then you want to look for any anomalies or things that are just totally understandable. So when you, for example, see the quarter note, that's its own beat group, and you know exactly what to do with that. When you see this rhythm, this is a rhythm we've been doing for forever. In Takadimi, it's Takadi. And this one is also one that we've been doing for a long time, Takami. And Takadimi is not going to work so well for these smaller subdivisions unless you use one of my tricks below. But even then, it's not going to work for executing it very well. And so this is in my class where I kind of just go back to going to using double tonguing, so that when you can do anything on any of the beats, but then when you get to 16th notes, you go taka 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 taka. So the other trick then is going to be to look ahead at where smaller subdivisions lie within the beat. So for example, in this very first rhythm, that might seem hard to decode because there's not a lot of other stuff going on except for that one 30-second note at the end. But where does that lie within the beat group? It's the very last 30-second subdivision in that beat group, which means it's going to happen exactly one 30-second note before the next beat starts. And so it's probably easier to think of how that relates to the following beat rather than how it relates to the beat group that it's in. But there are ways in which you could really understand it with the beat group that it's in as well. I would say that latter, or that former method of looking at how it relates to the following beat will be really helpful for you if you ever do syncopations. Because we could do this with syncopations and tie this note to this note, and that would then it's going to be much easier to think of how that 32nd note relates to the following beat. Okay, before I ramble any further, let's talk about ways that you can break this down for places that it seems scary. So one thing is that you can try and read it with a pulse at a smaller note value. I don't advise that as a final method, but as a way of breaking down something that is confusing to you, you can do that. So for example, in this first measure, if we used an 1/8 note pulse instead of a 1/4 note pulse, you can do the entire thing in takadimi. So, for example, we could do that. 4, 5, 6. Ta, mi, ta, mi, ta, mi, ta, takadimi. Right? You can use takadimi in this whole example if you just break it down into 1/8 note pulses instead of 1/4 note pulses. But we want to do it faster than that. So if you do that, you can do that to figure out where things are, but then you need to be able to speed it up. Another thing is that you can use your fingers, and I'm not going to try and draw fingers, but let's just pretend that these are my 4 fingers on my right hand, and I can tap 1, 2, 3, 4 for each beat in the exercise, and that will translate directly to 16th note pulses. So if I tap my fingers 4 times for each pulse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then that will show us where everything happens related to the 16th notes. So if I were to tap those 16th notes, the 32nd notes would lie exactly in between them. Let me try it a little bit slower, and let me see if I can make a tapping sound. Let's just pretend that's my fingers tapping. I should do it a little bit slower, sorry. So then that first measure would be 2, 3, ta, kata, 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 ta, kata, kata, right? So that you could hear that the 32nd notes happened in between the 16th note pulses. So if you're studying a rhythm, you can do it as slowly as you need to figure out where those all fit in. And I think I didn't write this down, but the thing is that a lot of these things you can just see that, for example, these 4 16th notes happen within the space of an 1/8 note. So just for an 1/8 notes time, do 16th notes. Same thing here. This is an entire 1/4 note of 32nd notes. I said the 16th notes before, and I meant 32nd notes. And then this is a little trickier here, but that is 2 32nd notes in the time of 1 16th note. But if you, again, relate that not to the beat group that it's in, especially since nothing else has happened in that beat group, but to the following beat group, you'll just know that that's going to come in 1 16th note before the next beat group. And the same thing happens at the end of that beat group as well. Although since there's so much context in that one, maybe you'll just see that as happening on the 4th 16th note space of the beat group. So let's try reading this. I will pause the video for a moment and erase all of the stuff that I've written so that you can read it unencumbered, and then you pause the video, and then we'll do it together. Okay? Here we go. Okay, I'm going to presume that you've paused the video and tried it on your own. And now let's try it together. We won't do it too fast. How about 1, 2, 3. Ta, kata, 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 taka, 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 ta, 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 taka, taka, ta. Taka 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 ta 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 taka ta 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 taka ta. good to remember to hold out notes for their full value. So I think that's it for decoding smaller subdivisions. Go ahead and let me know if you have questions or problems, or God forbid if I did something wrong. And I'll see you for another video soon.